Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana. We're here today with special guest, Dr. Stephen Fulder, who's here to share with us his new book, How to Thrive in Hard Times, a Buddhist Manual. So can Buddhist practices be an inspirational guide to living through difficult times? Well, today's guest is here to share with us just that. So Dr. Stephen Fulder was educated at Oxford and the National Institute of Medical Research. He was a lecturer at London University and is the founder of the Israel Insight Society and is one of Israel's leading spiritual teachers. Drawing on 40 years of mindfulness meditation and Dharma practices, he has guided thousands of people in exploring Buddhist teachings and many forms of meditation practice. So let's welcome to the show, Dr. Stephen Fulder.
Thank you, Marianne. Delighted to be with you all.
Oh my goodness, what an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this book. I think the best place to start is just from the beginning. It's like, what inspired you to write this?
Well, I think it's based on the understanding that we need to look at difficulty with new eyes. And that a lot of our struggle is trying to stop difficulty, trying to undo it, trying to kind of hide away from it, trying to kind of just watch movies and eat a lot and trying to shut it down. And I've been teaching Buddhist teachings for the last 30 years and practicing for, even more. And one gift of the Buddhist teaching is to say, don't be afraid of difficulty, but look at it at eye level and let it be our teacher. Let difficulty be a teacher so that we open and move to a new place when meeting difficulty rather than trying to shut it down or deny it or pretend it doesn't exist. And so that really inspired me to write more. And I have to say, that today we've never had a period of history that is so hard to so many. There's so much divisiveness. There's so many conflicts all over the world. There's so much insecurity, and the planet is suffering from climate change. And there's endless insecurity and difficulty. So we really do need some tools to work with difficulty, and we need to face it. And I think the Buddhist teaching gives us this. I've been teaching 30 years, as I say, and there are amazing tools in the Buddhist, toolkit for this purpose.
Well, I think that is such a big piece when we talk about meeting difficulty and not avoiding it. So I always think like the caveat to that, it's like, how do we do that and not add anger or aggression to that? Because I think a lot of times when we are faced with difficulty, it's bringing such anger and aggression to us. So how do we face it with something else?
Well, I think that fundamentally, the first thing to do is to say difficulty is part of life. I experience it now. Let me look at it directly. So imagine the simplest form of difficulty, a pain in the body. We can either run away from it. We can either run around trying to stop it, shut it down, take the necessary medicines, or we do that anyway, or we try and avoid it and just kind of pretend it doesn't exist and business as usual. But if we are wise, we will look at the pain directly, and that does stop the sense of aggression. The first aggression is shut it down because I want something else, and I have to do everything to stop it, and I have to go somewhere else, and also give other people a hard time because of it. No, we look directly and take responsibility for the pain. That's a big shift. The Buddha called it the big turning. So instead of trying to shut down our experience and fight it and fight other people that might be the blaming we want to blame, instead of that we say, okay, I take responsibility. Life produced this pain for me. Now I'm looking at it directly. I'm ready. I want to do something directly, and I take responsibility for it. And that's a big turning point.
That is a big turning point. Do you think that Buddhist principles offer practical guidance for us to be able to survive and thrive in like really modern challenges?
Yes, I do. I do. There are so many. But let me start with something very direct and simple. In times of conflict, times of difficulty, we tend to get swept away. And we get swept away by the voices. For example, today, social media and other media and everyone else and the whole society is so full of voices that we pay attention to, and we begin to lose our own voice, our own authentic voice. Actually, our attention is constantly stolen from us, is hijacked. Our attention is hijacked. We need to win back our attention and bring it back to what's important to us. And that is about meeting ourselves as we really are. And if you think about it, all our listeners have had a big life. They've been educated, they've been to college, they've been learning, they've been reading lots of books, they've been years of learning, studying, etc. And they're all big people in that sense. Or I'm talking to the audience, you're all big people. And you need to kind of come back home to yourself and feel that you're a big person and you're not going to get swept away by waves of pressure and distraction and anger and noise and taking very extreme views. Let's look back at ourselves. And that's the first thing that the Buddha said. Join yourself. Just before the Buddha died, he gathered his monks together and he said, hey, you guys, I've got a message. And the message is be an island to yourself. And how do you do that? You come back home to your genuine experience. What is my body telling me now? What is my heart telling me now? What is my spirit telling me now? What are my thoughts like? Who am I? And from there, everything shifts. If we think about an example, and I'm living in a conflict situation right now, as many of us are all over the world. And one of the movements that happen in conflict situation is that people get swept away by fear or anger or the sense of needing to take revenge, or helplessness, or feeling lost and alone. And all of those feelings are feelings. And from those feelings, we tend to build positions, like a position like us and them, labeling the other, a position like I'm a victim or they're a victim, or position like helplessness. There's nothing I can do in this world. It's all too much. They're positions, but they come out of emotion. And so the Buddha said, even in this teaching right at the end of his life, look directly at the emotion. Fear is fear. Look at it directly. It's not a problem. It's biological. But you don't need to build out of the fear a whole narrative of positions, as I say, and blame and et cetera, et cetera. So see the difference between a fear or an emotion and the constructions that we make around it. And that's a liberating place.
Very much is. It's pretty impressive how that all comes together where people can follow. In some ways, they're very simple teachings, but they do require practice.
That's right. So mindfulness is, of course, the number one practice that everyone's talking about. Just recently, I heard that 800 people in the British Parliament have taken courses on mindfulness. That's 300 members of Parliament and 500 of the staff that work there. And it's really a big thing today, and I'm really, really happy about that. So mindfulness is something that anyone can practice, and it's certainly a way of meeting ourselves, and a way of looking at our experience. And that's, I think, its power, and it can be used in real difficult situations. It's well known to be as effective in situations of chronic pain, for example, as some of the drugs that are used. But mindfulness is only one aspect. You asked me kind of about the Buddhist toolbox. And in my book, I'm giving lots and lots of different directions, tools, and possibilities of what can we work with in order to take responsibility for our experience and to reduce the stress and the struggle and the aggression, as you say. There are many other tools as well. One basic tool that I think is really important, and we lost it to these days, is trust. And actually, trust is very much part of mindfulness, but it's never really discussed. Trust is a sense that I am with what arises. I am ready to meet what arises. And there is a little story that I'd like to tell. I think it's originally in one of John Wellwood's books, about a woman who dreamt that she was being chased by a demon. And she ran and ran and ran and ran through forests and fields and trees. And eventually she came to a cliff and she couldn't run anymore. So she turned to the demon and said, "What are you going to do to me?" And the demon said, "I don't know. It's your dream, isn't it?"
Oh
So
boy.
it's really, we turn to our experience, and we do need some trust. We need some trust that we are ready to meet what arises. We need a little bit of trust or acceptance. Sometimes it's called radical acceptance, to say, yes, I am ready to meet what arises. There is a form of therapy called ACT, which I think is really very interesting and very effective and very much oriented towards the Buddhist practice, which is acceptance and commitment therapy. It's a psychotherapy based on acceptance. So the first thing is be mindful, but accept what arises, meet what arises with eye level and say, I'm ready. I meet you. Okay, now what? I'm listening. For example, a pain in the body, the same. I meet you. I'm ready. What are you telling me? What's your lesson? I'm listening. That makes a very big change, and it's one of the tools that indeed it's in the practice. And I would say one more that is really crucial, and that is the movement of compassion. One time I remember going to meet Professor Mark Williams, and he's been a real pioneer in the use of mindfulness as a therapy, especially in depression and especially for young people in depression. And so he's developed a system called mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, MBCT, which is used especially for young people with depression. And I gave a lecture in his unit there in Oxford in the UK. And I asked him, tell me, what's the relevance of compassion to mindfulness? It seems very technique based. And he said, the whole thing doesn't work unless you have compassion. And compassion, in a word, is the way our heart moves out into the world and listens to the pain of others. And it's kind of the active aspect of mindful awareness. It's where the heart is active. It's listening to the pain of others. Every one of us will be ready to help a blind man cross a road, for example. We do it automatically. And there is compassion. Very often we don't have compassion for people far away or strangers or people on the other side of the border or people, that we identify as the enemy or the problem or the other. But there is our inner work that we need to do. They also suffer. They are like us. On the other side of the border, a crying kid is the same as a crying kid on our side of the border. And that's a really, really important, I would say, initiative in the Buddhist world. It helps us to listen to others, even if we don't agree with them.
One of the things that you talk about in your book, I think, bears for us to really touch on. You talk about our words and what we're saying. If we're either bringing blessings to ourselves or others, or pain, and I'd love for you to share about that with our listeners.
Yeah, it's very tricky because our words are very spontaneous. And according to our inner world, we tend to just flip out of our mouth whatever comes out. So if we're frustrated, angry, upset, we will tend to throw that out to others. So I would say there's two ways, and the whole Buddhist teaching is in two directions: outside towards in. That means outside would be how we behave, how we are with others, and watching what comes out of our mouth or how we act. In the case of speech, is our speech causing pain to the other? Is our speech causing confusion or distraction? Or is it causing blame? Or is it causing other people to be violent to a third party? So is it helpful? And is it true or wise? So we do need to check that, but it's not easy. So I always say, do it a bit. Whatever you can, however you can, would be really helpful. And then from the inside is checking the motivation behind our speech. And that's from the inside out. So, as I say, there are two directions: outside in, inside out. From the inside out, what am I trying to do with these words? How am I trying to, what am I expressing with these words? And I'll give you a small example. Where I live, we're in a state of war. And very often I meet somebody in the street who has very, very strong views which are perhaps aggressive or violent. And the first thing, I don't come out with an alternative, with another opposite view, saying, how can you think like that, this, etc. I don't come out with an opposite view, but I might use language to help the other person feel safe. And then they would be more ready to listen to me. So I might say, and this happened just a few days ago, can I ask you something? Would you be ready to listen to another view? I understand where you're coming from. I understand your concerns and I'm listening to you. But is it okay if I come with a different view at this time? So that kindness would be a way of beginning a conversation that otherwise wouldn't be possible if I just came with a confrontational language. So it's the inside and outside. And I would say that the same goes with ethics. The ethics work from the outside in. That means how you are in the world influences your inner life, and the inner life influences how you are in the world. For example, if you smile at the world, there's much more chance that the world's going to smile back at you. You can't guarantee. Karma is too big we have no guarantees. You could smile at somebody and they kill you. But there's a tendency that for ethics, if we live with a pure life, we're more likely to have purity as part of our existence. And so ethics work in helping others and also helping our inner development and our spiritual journey. And then from the inside, how do we act? Do we act with compassion and helpfulness, beneficial? Do we increase ease or do we increase suffering in the world? That's the question that we ask before we act or when we act. So it's inside and outside go together.
Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Dr. Stephen Fulder in regards to his new book, How to Thrive in Hard Times, a Buddhist Manual. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
Are you an author, speaker, or expert who is looking for more publicity? Visit radioguestlist.com and sign up for free interview requests from shows looking for guests. Radio Guest List is the #1 free booking resource for radio, podcasts, and TV talk shows who are looking for experts like you right now. Visit radioguestlist.com and sign up today to get the visibility you deserve.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special, When you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place, here's where their lives were forever changed and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
It's one thing to become attached to your perfect home, but what do you do when that home becomes attached to you? A family in dire need of a fresh start, a mysterious house tied to the past. Buried deep within the foundation of the old Far Hill Manor lies a centuries-old secret. Dark forces or something stronger just waiting to be discovered. Caretaker, a supernatural thriller by breakout authors R.J. Halpert.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with special guest, Dr. Stephen Fulder, who's here to share with us his new book, How to Thrive in Hard Times, a Buddhist Manual. So is there a way, and I know you kind of touch on this in your book, but is there a way that we can kind of use the Buddhist concept of detachment when we are dealing with money? Or is there another way that we can have like a healthier relationship with money? Because I know we're so kind of embroiled in consumerism, but we've got the financial realities that we have to face today.
Yes, indeed. I think money is a good example of something that comes in and out of our life like water that we get attached to. There's a very old Indian story of a king who's in the desert, and he suddenly gets really thirsty, and he prays to Shiva and said, "Please give me water, give me water." And the Indian god said, "Okay, if you give me half your kingdom, I'll give you water." And he did. And he said, yes, take half my kingdom. In a little while, he couldn't urinate. So he prayed again to the gods and said, "I need to urinate. Unblock my channels." And the god said, "Okay, but you give me the other half of your kingdom." He said, yes, take. So he could urinate. And then the gods turned to him and said, "You should know, you've given your entire kingdom for something that comes in and goes out." So money is like that. It actually comes in and out. So one thing is just to notice that how it flows through us and flows through society. And when we see it like that, we can say, I need to, for example, yes, I need to make sure that I have this material like food or like water so I can survive. But that doesn't need attachment. That needs some action to make sure that I survive, like taking a meal when we are hungry. It's an action. But we don't need to be obsessed with food if we're hungry. That means when we've eaten the meal, we don't need to be still obsessed with food. And the same with money. We do what we need to do in order to get enough money, but we can let go of the symbolic and the iconic status of money, which is conditioned by society as a value in society, a very high value in society. We can't continuously say, wait a minute, it's something that I need for life, comes in and out like water. That's the end of it. The Buddhist teaching gives, of course, a lot more than that. And it says, when you find an attachment, first thing is to notice that it's painful. And that's the first noble truth of the Buddha, is suffering exists as part of our experience. We can't deny it. And attachment is a place where we cause ourselves and often other people suffering. So the first thing is to see the pain of it, how we are slave of it, how it takes away our freedom, how it takes away often our joy when we say we've never got enough, we've never got enough. So to see that pain of it, to see that it comes in and out, to see our mental relationship to it, the patterns and the ways of thinking, and to let them go, to see that they're not helpful, to notice our stuckness with it and say, I see it. It's not needed. It's not really me. I'm bigger than the attachment to money. I'm a bigger person. To see that very clearly and notice it. And then we can let go of thoughts about money, obsessive thoughts or attachment. So it's about all of those. Plus one important thing, when we let go of an attachment, well, whatever it is, to money or to something, or to a view that we have of life, or to an opinion, or to something we really, really, really need, like a cup of coffee right now. But every time we let go of an attachment, we see that it's we can actually be bigger than that attachment. There is a space opens up, and that's the space of freedom, a space of more inner freedom, more inner space, which is where the whole practice goes to. That inner freedom and lightness of being is a sign of, shall we say, spiritual development.
For our listeners, do you have a practice that you can walk us through that they can take with them throughout their day to day?
Of course, bearing in mind that your listeners can be in any situation in life. They're not sitting necessarily cross-legged on the floor in a yoga posture. They're probably driving on the freeway or in any other situation in life. So I'm going to give a few minutes of guidance which is applicable in any situation in life. So I recommend that all of you, wherever you are, whatever situation you find yourself in, just take a deep breath and breathe out. And take a deep breath and breathe out. And as you breathe out, feel a sense of release. Let go, release. Release stress, release tension, release what we're holding. And as you do that, feel that you are coming home to your genuine experience right now. Maybe we feel our hands are touching the steering wheel. Our feet are touching the pedal of the car. Our body is pressing down into the seat, into the chair. We maybe hear the sounds around us, and we maybe see so many other cars or people or street or whatever we see. And we take all of that, all of those experiences in the moment under the kind of general sense of, I have arrived, I am here, I have come home to this moment. This is my real, genuine experience in the now. And take a moment to really feel how that is to come home to ourselves. With that, begin to feel that it's helpful to us to connect to ourselves, to connect to our hands and our body and this world around us. It's not just technical. It's helpful. There is a certain sense of joining the world again, instead of being separate and isolated. We are with the world. our body, our senses, the world around us. We are back in the world. And feel in our inner being a sense of, I would say, a small smile, a kind of kindness. Yes, I am with myself. Yes, I am with the world. Yes, we are together. This sense of being, of arriving, of being where we are, is the basis of mindfulness. It doesn't need a lot of technique, but it needs a sense, relaxation, and listening to what is really happening right now. And feel that it doesn't need hard work. It's just something like we land in the now and appreciate what is really happening in the now. If we have thoughts, and we will, they're part of the picture. They're like the sounds inside us, like the sounds outside us. They're like clouds crossing the sky. We can just feel, yes, they have their place as well. They don't disturb. So we can listen to our body, we can listen to the world, and we can listen to our mind, and we can listen to our heart. If we have a feeling, give it a little space. It's all right. It's also asking us to listen to it. And a final word of an attitude of compassion is an attitude in which we are not only listening, but we're going towards everything. A small discomfort or a pain is like our crying child, that we go towards it and we listen to it. So allow compassion to be very natural in our life. It makes a big, big difference to everything that happens to us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to walk us through that. That was just so impactful.
Thank you, Marianne. Thank you. Yeah.
For those folks that are having a difficult time practicing compassion, what should they do when they come up against a situation where they realize that they're not being compassionate? Do they start again, or how should they do that?
Well, compassion can't be forced. And I think that compassion is a practice that we have to, in a way, do very often in good times, when we're not faced with real difficult, challenging situations. It's not a kind of instant. Let me give you an example. I've been involved I've been to many, many, many trips to the United States, working with companies and so on as part of my work. And I go into board meetings or group meetings, and as I'm opening the door, I have in my heart a sense of compassion for everybody there that I'm going to meet. Namely, everyone there is like me, struggling to make sense of life, doing the best they can, whatever it is that they can. And I kind of already feel sympathy for them. Each one is doing what they can in life, what they understand. And then I go into the meeting and sit down. And hopefully that compassion, that sense of compassion that is built beforehand, will have its result. But there's no guarantee in the heat. In the heat of an argument, it's hard to switch it on. But it's always about seeing the other like yourself. If you see, for example, someone arguing with you, and you see their pain, and you look behind their eyes and you see where they're coming from, straight away, your attitude to them will change. I'll give you an example. I'm in the Middle East, and I've worked for years as trying to bring different sides together, trying to bring together Israelis and Palestinians, and trying to bring sometimes Israelis and Israelis together who have very different views. I've been, in a way, from the Buddhist point of view, a peacemaker. And one of the things we did in a workshop called The Transformation of Suffering is we had two people. We prepared for a whole day. We prepared in sense of increasing the safety and the confidence of people. But then we sat down, sat down in dyads, two people opposite, like two Israelis thinking opposite, or an Israeli and Palestinian coming from different camps or different countries or different views. And we just asked them to tell the story of their life. What is the difficulty that you experience in your daily life? And if you really feel the difficulty of the other, that triggers compassion straight away. And you begin to get close to the other, and you see where they're coming from, and you see their life and their struggle. And somehow something breaks in the wall that is being built between you and the other. So compassion is always about seeing the other and slowly expanding the boundary of the other. I'll give you a small example. Your neighbor's kid might be really disturbing you, okay, crying or making a noise, or your neighbor's, I don't know what, media or television or whatever. Compassion would invite you to see the neighbor's child like your own. Yes, like the neighbor's child is crying like your child. And you begin to look at the neighbor's child differently and say, okay, I understand the neighbor's child is crying. I'm with it. And already the neighbor's child is less, shall we say, further away and problematic. So as much as you can feel the other and feel the pain of the other as like yours, that expands the boundary of compassion. But it cannot be forced. You can't say, I must be compassionate, because that's not compassionate to yourself. And on the other hand, if you don't feel compassion, you can say, okay, I'm compassionate to my heart that feels a bit closed right now. You can give compassion to your non-compassionate heart. So there's always a place for compassion. There's always a place where you can develop it. You just look for the call of life. What is calling my heart right now? And go there. And that will develop the compassion.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And that makes such sense. I never even thought about it that way, that we are not being compassionate to ourselves if we're trying to force it. What a very interesting piece. I'm going to be thinking about that for the rest of today.
Great.
So
Great.
what would you like our readers and listeners to take away from how to thrive in hard times?
I think I will tell you that I live in the nature, in an ecological village that I helped to found. And there's lots of olive trees. I have olive trees. And when you look at an olive tree, and you look at the tree outside your street or your house, the tree is shaped by the wind and the rain and the earth and the conditions. And the tree doesn't have a problem with that. My message would be, we are shaped by life. We are not in control of life. Life is shaping us. Life is giving us the experiences that we have. And we need to sort of say, I'm okay with that. Life is bigger than me. It is shaping my experience. I'll go along with that. And let the experiences of life come and go as they want. And for us to be kind of open and ready and connected to the bigness of things and connected to life and trusting life. And it's kind of with that we get up in the morning and say, it might not be a pleasant experience, or it might be pleasant or unpleasant, but I trust life. I am part of life. And it's that life point of view that is a liberating point of view. In all the struggle and in hard times, we take a life point of view. When there's violence around, don't forget you can enjoy the tree outside your garden or street. You can enjoy a cup of tea. You can enjoy a moment of peace. You can enjoy the eyes of a loved one. All of that is available. We just have to allow it in, not to be too defensive. Allow it all in. So that's a message.
Where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community and learn more about your work?
So I have a website, stephenfulder.com, and I have a newsletter that I send out every 10 days or so. So that's the best places to check on my website.
Well, Stephen, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Marianne, thank you. And I've really enjoyed your questions and enjoyed the discussion, and appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Stephen Fulder. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, How to Thrive in Hard Times, a Buddhist Manual. Make sure to pick up your copy of How to Thrive in Hard Times at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. Remember, support our indie bookstores. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.